Hi, my name is Andi. I'm a chaotic reader, and in my previous video I spent around 40 minutes putting together my autumn TBR. So today I want to do something quick and to the point, so let's do some rapid fire recommendations about books which I think match the autumn mood perfectly. A little about me as a reader. I am drawn to fantasy stories with richly detailed words and vivid sort of sensory writing that completely pulls you in, and I tend to gravitate towards more character-driven stories with a dash of romance rather than plot-driven stories. Hopefully this should give you an idea if our tastes in book overlap or not. I did a version of this video last year, so there will be some overlap, but I have read a lot more books since then that I'm excited to include now. Similar to last year, I divided all of the recommendations into categories, starting with a completely new one, which I called On the Questions of Immortality. I don't know about you, but the changing of seasons from summer to autumn always brings a sense of melancholy for me. It makes me think of the passing of time. What books do I recommend if you want to explore these topics? I have to start with The Song of Achilles and Circe from Madeline Miller. Now, I know they are obviously very different stories, although both connected to Greek mythology, but they share the central theme of immortality. They represent different perspectives. Achilles is very much about excessive pride, chasing immortality through legacy, where for Circe, immortality is a burden and she struggles with loneliness and fleeting human connections. I said it before, the real tragedy of The Song of Achilles was the short lives that Achilles and Patroclus lived, but here the tragedy is the long life of Circe. I recommend both because Madeline Miller explores both perspectives masterfully through heartfelt plot points and immersive, lush world-building with a backdrop of Greek mythology. So if you're in a contemplative mood, these books will surely hit the spot. If we are talking about immortality and loneliness, I really wish more people would read Peaches and Honey, These Immortal Truths. In a nutshell, this story is about Anna starting in the 12th century, I believe, when she is granted immortality through a divine peach by a shape-shifting god for a good deed. This book offers a lot of perspective on time, history, humanity, as Anna witnesses a lot of change over the centuries, and her own identity also changes over time as she is constantly forced to adapt. I would say if you like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, you will enjoy Peaches and Honey too, especially Anna's relationship to the shape-shifting god, which is a real slow burn. Like I'm talking centuries of slow burn. On the other hand, if you're looking for a romance-heavy, dramatic, high-stakes adventure, this is not the story for you. There is actually a second part titled Pits and Poison, These Godly Lies, I believe, but I haven't read it yet, that's why I'm not including it. But just know that Peaches and Honey is, so far, a duology. Even though I'm still reading it, I would also include Wilde Reverence by Rebecca Ross in this category. Here we have Matilda, a young goddess, as our main character, and her connection with Vincent, Immortal, is very much the focus of the story. I would say it's more about the tension between divine and mortal lives and how that affects things such as love and identities, rather than exploring the existential questions of immortality, like for example it is the case in Circe and Peaches and Honey. Based on my own example, I enjoy Divine Rivals. My absolute favorite romance trope is yearning, but only when it's done well, when the whole world seems to be against their love and not the stupid miscommunication type. So if you're looking for all of this, this is your sign to pick up Rebecca Ross's newest release. Also, if you enjoy her lush, lyrical writing style, which she nailed in this story as well, you will love Wilde Reverence. For the next category, we kind of stay with immortality, but in a different form. I called it Fae, but the human is clever too, last year, and I feel like it still fits. In these stories, it's a lot less about insanely good-looking and perfect Fae characters, and much more about the silly and whimsical kind, with seasonal courts and tricky bargains, but the human characters are capable of outsmarting them. Let's start with a new addition to this category, Forest of Dreams and Whispers. Here we have a Sleeping Beauty retelling, where the Fae Prince Hawthorne is cursed that at his 18th birthday, at the first drop of his blood, the kingdom and all of the Fae will fall into deep slumber. Enter Juliana, his personal guard and personal menace, who is sworn to break the curse. I enjoyed their bantery dynamic a lot. We get a lot of teasing and flirting and all the swoon-worthy scenes. They get injured, there is only one bed, they see each other's scars. You really couldn't ask for more. I recommend this to anyone looking for a light-hearted, silly Fae story with a romance that builds step by step. The author keeps it interesting, it doesn't feel rushed, and their feelings towards each other make sense. If you enjoy characters like Wendell from Emily Wilde or Howl from Howl's Moving Castle, give Prince Hawthorne a try. If whimsy is not your thing and you need a complex, high-stakes plotline, this book is not for you. Speaking of whimsy and silly funny Fae characters, my next recommendation is My Feral Romance from Tessania Odette. If you're in a reading slump this autumn, books like this are perfect. It is low stakes, but has surprising emotional depth, as both main characters grow individually, but also together. I found the setup really charming. We have Daphne, a Fae illustrator who struggles to paint a male model until his friend Monty Phillips volunteers, on the condition that she helps him prove that his matchmaking tips work. Do you see the potential in this setup? Take it from somebody who is not a big fan of the friends to lovers build-up. This one was done so well. It's charming, it's sweet, and with believable emotional growth. If you're looking for an easy read with character-driven stories, banter, and heart, and you don't mind that the cozy fantasy setting is actually more of a backdrop rather than the focus, this is a must-read. If you prefer dark fantasy with intricate world building and very action-based conflicts, you won't like this one. Since I already mentioned it, I cannot not include the Emily Wilde trilogy in this category. In my opinion, it's the perfect mix of whimsical and eerie, ideal for autumn. It also contains scholarly themes, which I tend to associate with the autumn months. In the first and second book, we follow Emily during her research into the local fairy folk, joined by her fellow professor, the insufferable but charming and capable Wendell Bumblebee. I have to say, my usual pet peeve with sequels is that they lose the spark and the dynamic often becomes boring and repetitive, but here the second book feels like true progression. It managed to expand the world and deepen the stakes while still preserving the original tone. I haven't read the third book yet, but it is very much on my TBR. Nevertheless, I recommend the whole series to anyone who enjoys a female lead who is very much an anti-hero. I mean, here Emily just wants to do research and be left alone, and that's refreshing to read. If you like your fairy folklore to be a bit more eerie and you prefer a romantic subplot that builds alongside the fantasy elements rather than being the sole focus, you should pick up Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is the first book. And for the last category, I kept the name Castles, Princes and Magical Woods, because plots set in enchanted forests, misty castles with like horse riding scenes and a touch of gothic fantasy always give me autumn vibes. Starting strong here with the Magical Woods part, where the dark stands still builds on Polish mythology elements, very similar to the world of The Witcher. We have a sentient manor, demons lurking in the lakes, and a magical bargain between a village girl and the guardian spirit of the forest as the central plot point. All the perfect ingredients for a dark fairy tale. If you're looking for a gothic fantasy story with unique folklore inspiration, especially one with found family dynamic and strong character growth, Where the Dark Stands Still is a great pick for you. If you prefer fast-paced action plotlines and you dislike slow romance development as a subplot, and you want to stay with light, purely whimsical fantasy stories, this one is not for you, my friend. Will I ever stop recommending One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns? Unlikely. When I tell you that this story captures the autumn vibes perfectly, we have stunning gothic imagery with castles, misty woods, a magic system based on cards that grant different abilities, and an ancient riddle with an ancient monster lurking in our main character's head. Everything here is done exceptionally well. If you, like me, appreciate a magic system where power has consequences, you also appreciate a strong mix of romance and dark gothic fantasy, and you enjoy reading about princes with a tortured past and complex emotional depth, for that you need to read the second book. You need to pick up this duology. If you dislike morally grey characters and you prefer to stay with very light fantasy with no darker themes, and you don't like reading multiple POVs, I wouldn't recommend this for you. Speaking of a prince with a tortured past and complex emotional depth, we have Reign and Ruin, which I heard nobody talk about, and that is diabolical. We have such a compelling character dynamic here with romance and personal growth and political intrigue. In the story we follow Naim, the heir to the Sultanate, but she has to secure the council's approval, and Makram, who acts as an envoy in the name of his brother, but he has his own reasons to aid Naim. And all of this set in a rich, Middle Eastern inspired fantasy backdrop with elemental powers. This is a true hidden gem for every reader who enjoys their love stories with the foundation of mutual respect and admiration, where both leads are clever and capable, but in different ways, and they end up learning things from each other. If you love pining, if you love yearning, if you love slow burn, where every interaction feels electric, you need to read their story. I would say if you liked, We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars, you will like Reign and Ruin too. It's part of a series, but the next books focus on other characters, so it can be read as a standalone. The only reason I can think of not to pick it up is if you dislike political intrigue, the main plot is essentially that. In that case, you might want to give this one a miss. Or you might still read it and realize that you enjoy the balance between romance, epic fantasy elements, and political maneuvering. Maybe. So these were all the lushly atmospheric fantasy books which I think are perfect for autumn. Let me know your top picks in the comments. I'm so excited to finish Wilde Reverence, and then I got some other 5-star predictions like The Paladin's Grace, which I also cannot wait to pick up. I think for my next video I will do a reading wrap-up from the last couple of months. See you in there. Until then, take care. Bye!